On a frozen trail in the dead of winter, a struggling cowboy pulls an unconscious woman from a snowdrift, never asking her name, never expecting anything in return. But when a letter arrives 2 weeks later, revealing she owns the largest cattle empire in the territory, his simple act of kindness becomes the key to a future he never dared to imagine. Before we dive into this story, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. The wind screamed through Widow's Pass like a wounded animal, tearing across the narrow trail that wound between towering pines and sheer rock walls. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, turning the world into nothing but white and cold. Jesse Dalton hunched forward in his saddle, one gloved hand gripping the reins, the other clutching his coat tight against his neck. His horse, an old roan mare named Dust, picked her way carefully through the drifts, ears pinned back against the storm. Behind him, wrapped tightly in a wool blanket and strapped to the saddle, 8-year-old Tommy fought to keep his eyes open. His small face was buried against his father's back, arms locked around Jesse's waist. The boy hadn't complained once, not about the cold, not about the long ride home from Stillwater. He knew better. Winter in Red Bluff territory didn't care about complaints. Jesse had spent 14 hours at Harlow's stable that day, shoeing horses, mending broken wagon axles for travelers desperate enough to keep moving despite the storm. His hands still ached from the work, knuckles cracked and raw beneath his gloves. The pay wasn't much, but it kept food on the table and firewood stacked by the cabin door. That had to be enough. They were less than 3 miles from home when Jesse saw it. A dark shape slumped against the base of a wind-twisted pine just off the trail. At first he thought it was a fallen branch, maybe a deer carcass left by wolves. But as Dust stepped closer, the shape took form. A horse, black as midnight, collapsed in the snow, legs folded beneath it, head hanging low. And beside it, half buried in drifting white, lay a motionless figure in a long coat. Jesse pulled Dust to a stop, his gut tightening. "Stay put, Tommy," he said quietly as he swung down from the saddle. The boy nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. Jesse approached slowly, boots crunching through the snow. The black horse lifted its head weakly, steam rising from its nostrils, exhausted but alive. The person beside it wasn't moving. Jesse dropped to one knee, brushing snow from a shoulder, then a face. A woman, her lips were blue, her skin pale as wax. Ice clung to her dark hair, and her breathing was so shallow he almost missed it. "Ma'am," Jesse said, firm but gentle, shaking her shoulder. "Nothing." He pulled off his glove and pressed 2 fingers to her neck. A pulse, faint but there. That was all he needed. He didn't wonder who she was. Didn't ask how she'd ended up alone on Widow's Pass in a blizzard. Didn't think about the storm or the miles still between them and shelter. He just acted. Scooping her into his arms, Jesse carried her back to Dust. The mare snorted nervously but held steady. Jesse shifted Tommy forward in the saddle, then carefully positioned the woman behind the boy, draping her limp arms around Tommy's waist. "Hold her hands, son," Jesse said. "Don't let go." Tommy's eyes were wide with fear, but he nodded, gripping the woman's frozen fingers in his small hands. Jesse mounted up in front of them, gathered the reins, and urged Dust forward. Behind them, the black horse staggered to its feet and followed, too weak to run, too loyal to be left behind. The wind howled louder. Snow fell harder. Jesse clenched his jaw, every step a battle, every breath burning. He could feel the woman's weight slumping heavier against Tommy's back. She was slipping away. "Almost there," he muttered, whether to the boy, the horse, or himself, he didn't know. Then through the wall of white he saw it. His cabin, rough-hewn logs, a crooked roof. Smoke barely curling from the chimney, but to Jesse Dalton it looked like salvation. The woman's gaze softened. Slowly she reached out, accepting the bowl with trembling hands. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadier now. Tommy grinned. "You got a name?" "Tommy," Jesse said gently, a quiet warning, but the woman smiled faintly. "It's all right." She looked at the boy. "Kate, my name's Kate." Tommy nodded solemnly, committing it to memory. "I'm Tommy, that's my pa, Jesse." Kate glanced at Jesse again, something shifting behind her gray eyes. Gratitude, maybe. Or something deeper. "Thank you, Jesse," she said softly, "for not leaving me out there." Jesse nodded once, his face unreadable. "Eat up," he said. "You'll need your strength." And as the fire crackled and the storm outside finally began to fade, the 3 of them sat together in the quiet warmth of the cabin, strangers no longer. Night settled in thick and still. Outside, the wind had lost its fury, leaving only the soft whisper of snow sliding from the roof. Inside, the fire burned steady, casting long shadows across the walls like ghosts of old memories. Kate sat propped on the cot, the empty bowl resting in her lap. She had eaten slowly, deliberately, as if each bite required effort. Jesse had returned to his chair, giving her space. Tommy sat cross-legged on the floor nearby, whittling a scrap of wood with his small knife, his tongue poking out in concentration. Kate watched them in silence. The man, broad-shouldered, weathered, his face shaped by hard winters and harder work. The boy, too serious for his age, shaped early by responsibility. There was something achingly familiar about this place, about its simplicity. It reminded her of something she'd lost long ago. "How long have you lived here?" Kate asked. Jesse looked up. "Going on 6 years, built it myself after my wife passed." Kate's expression softened. "I'm sorry," he nodded once, practiced. "Tommy was just 2, needed a place to raise him. This was all I could afford." "It's honest work," Kate said, glancing around the cabin. "Good work." Jesse's jaw tightened, not in anger, but in quiet pride. "It keeps us fed, keeps us warm." "That's enough." Kate set the bowl aside. "You could ask for more." Jesse met her eyes. Don't see the point." There was resignation in his voice, one Kate recognized too well. She'd seen it in the men who worked her land, men who'd stopped dreaming because dreaming hurt too much. "What were you doing out there?" Jesse asked gently. "On Widow's Pass." "In a storm like that?" Kate exhaled slowly, fingers tracing the quilt. "I was heading to Grandpan Lodge, business. My driver fell ill, so I went alone. Thought I could outrun the storm." A bitter smile crossed her lips. "I was wrong." "That trail's no place for anyone alone," Jesse said quietly. Kate's eyes flashed. "I've ridden worse." "I'm sure you have," he replied calmly. "Still doesn't mean the mountain cares." She studied him then, really studied him. No judgment, no calculation, just truth. "What do you do?" Tommy asked suddenly. "For work, I mean." Kate hesitated, then carefully, "I run a ranch, cattle mostly." Tommy's eyes lit up. "Like the big ones, hundreds of head," Kate smiled. "Something like that. Must be nice," Jesse said quietly. No envy, just observation. Kate felt something twist in her chest. She thought of Silver Ridge, its endless land, its grand house filled with empty rooms. Then she looked around this small cabin and realized which one felt more like home. "It has its challenges," she said softly. Jesse nodded. "Everything worth having does," Tommy yawned. Jesse stood, lifted the boy into his arms, and carried him to the small cot, tucking him in with practiced tenderness. "You should rest too," Jesse said to Kate. "Morning comes quick." She nodded. "Thank you for everything." He banked the fire, and as the cabin settled into darkness, Kate closed her eyes, feeling safer than she had in years. Morning came cold and clear. Sunlight spilled through the frost-coated window. Jesse was already awake, pulling on his boots. Kate stirred, testing her body. The worst had passed. "Morning," Jesse said. "How you feeling?" "Alive," she replied softly. "That's more than I expected." "I'll check on your horse," he said. "Storm's past." "No need," he added before she could argue. "You rest." He was gone before she could reply. From the window, Kate watched him work, quiet, careful, thorough. He treated her horse with the same respect he gave everything else. "Always like that," Tommy said beside her, "fixing things even when nobody asks." Kate smiled. "Sounds like a good man." "Best man I know," Tommy said without hesitation. Jesse finished his work and led the horse to the porch. "She's ready," he said. "Should get you home easy." "You didn't have to," Kate said. "Horse needed tending." She reached for her pocket. Jesse stopped her with a shake of his head. "Keep it." She studied him, then slowly tucked the money away. "I won't forget this," she said. "Safe travels, Miss Kate." She rode off, leaving behind only hoofprints and a question Jesse couldn't shake. 3 weeks passed. Life returned to its rhythm. Work, bills, repairs, survival. But sometimes Jesse found himself thinking of Kate. Tommy asked once, "You think we'll see her again?" "I doubt it," Jesse said. "She's got her life, we got ours." But he wondered. The letter came on a Thursday, heavy paper, red wax seal from Miss Katherine Merrick. Jesse read it twice. Then a third time, foreman, $120 a month, housing, schooling for Tommy, a partnership. A future. That evening, Jesse knelt before his son. "She owns the biggest ranch in the territory," he said, "and she's offering us a life." "Are we saying yes?" Tommy asked, breathless. Jesse swallowed. "Yes, son, I think we are." At Silver Ridge, Kate waited. You came, she said. You asked, she smiled. Partners, she said, extending her hand. Jesse took it. Partners. As the sun dipped below the mountains, two lives that should never have crossed paths became forever intertwined. Not by fortune, not by power, but by the simple, enduring choice to do what was right.